Good morning. My name is Michael Jones. Welcome to our monthly BlueTech Global Connect. Today we are going to focus on water, wastewater, and the circular economy. We've got a great moderator and three very interesting companies that will be presenting. Next slide, please. So every month we have a different topic. In January, it was ocean plastics and circular economy. February was anti-biofouling. You can see those on our TMA BlueTech YouTube channel. Today is water, wastewater, and then we're pleased that we will be, excuse me, doing an event on BlueTech, space, and the circular economy with NASA JPL in April, and then in May with the National Oceanography Center from the UK that TMA BlueTech has a MOU with. We'll be looking at ocean sensors in the circular economy. So as you can tell, the theme this year is the circular economy. Our purpose is to bring people together, the companies, so they can meet each other and work together, but it's to find all kinds of helpful individuals from various countries that may be able to want to work with these companies. As we say, if it's wet, it's blue. We are really focused on small and medium-sized enterprises, focused on innovative ocean and water, wastewater technologies, broad range audience. And the agenda is always the same, 7:45 to for about 5 minutes I'll talk. Then we have a featured speaker today, that's Nick Martin, and we'll come back to that. And then starting at 8, each of the companies will present for 10 minutes, followed by a 30-minute Q&A, and we'll end at 9. Next, please. We started TMA Europe with our partner Formoziano. And so our member companies will benefit from introductions to the European Union, and our goal is eventually to create a nice landing spot in Portugal for non-European companies. Next, please. Next week, 27th of March, is World Water Day. We're a little ahead of that, but we always try and do the third Thursday of each month. So happy World Water Day to all of you, and this is our contribution to that conversation, and it's all about valuing water. Next, please. BlueTech Week 2021 will be November 15th through 19th. Our theme, you can tell we like themes, is aqua optimism, inclusion, inspiration, and innovation. And we hope that you will join us. It will be virtual again. This past year, very similar time frame, we had 665 attendees from 37 countries, great topics, great speakers, great contacts, and we look forward to 2021. Next, please. We have a small but mighty team. I'm Michael, obviously. Tamara is doing all the hard work and is also on the call, of course, and then we have an intern, Vanessa Tang, and we are looking for an executive director. So if anybody has any great candidates that care about the ocean and water, BlueTech, innovation, please send them our way. Next, please. We hope that there'll be somebody in this group. There are several people that are investors that we're going to call in today. They may or may not be able to invest in some of these companies, but we're not giving any investment advice, and this is our ability to tell you that. Next, please. By participating, you've registered on our mailing list. We use Constant Contact. It's easy to unsubscribe anytime. Next, please. To the attendees, please set your computers to mute and turn off your cameras, just so we don't get confusing, so that the speakers will be the ones that we focus on. And at the end, you'll be using the chat conversation function for questions. We don't have live questions, so whenever you hear something that you want to ask about, throw it in the chat feature. Next, please. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nick Martin. And Nick is, as you can tell, Executive Director for the Beverage Industry Environmental Roundtable. We always look for a company, an individual, to moderate the panel that we think, the session that can bring really some insights to it. And so we're pleased that Nick is joining us. We always have a practice session a couple of days earlier, which we did with Nick as well. So Nick, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you've got about 6 minutes.
Great, Michael, appreciate it. Let me pull up the slides real fast.
And I should say that you're also going to be managing the Q&A session at the end.
Okay. Okay, good. Good morning, all. As Michael said, so Nick Martin, I am Executive Director of the Beverage Industry Environmental Roundtable, or BEER. And then also I serve as Sustainability Practice Lead for Antea Group, a global consultancy. So happy to be here. Appreciate everybody joining. As Michael mentioned, the topic is water circularity. So I've been asked to kind of give some introductory remarks. It'll be a little bit like 8-minute abs for circularity, but I'll do it here in about 6 minutes to keep on track. So water, I think everybody on this call knows it's critically important. I really like these two graphs. I think it really emphasizes quickly how important water is. On the left-hand side, you see there with the World Economic Forum's latest global risk landscape. So if you look at the top are likelihood and the bottom are impact, you can really tie water to all 5 of the top for either likelihood or impact. You could probably argue that maybe weapons of mass destruction, doesn't tie to water, but you can't make anything without water, any product at all. So everything has a water element to it, and it kind of gets buried a little bit at times, but I think it's important to remember that it's a foundation kind of fundamental topic. And then if you look on the right hand side, it's also obviously really important to our society. So I've always loved this graphic. It comes from the Netherlands Environmental Agency, Assessment Agency. And it really just emphasizes how, again, critical water is, and that it ties to all 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals, not just a selection of those. And I think that's really important to keep in mind, again, that water is kind of a fabric topic and fabric issue. What we see, and I see it in a lot of the work I do, is that it really then translates into 3 things. There's either too little water, which you hear a lot about, right? And that's a lot of the storytelling, but there can also be too much water. We see a lot of this with extreme climate, extreme weather, and flooding. And then there can also be too poor quality. For some locations, they have all 3 of those, unfortunately. And then what we see is, with some of the lighter font there are a variety of amplifiers. So climate change is one that gets a lot of attention. Climate change can amplify any of these 3 conditions very quickly and very, very dramatically. And then, what we see is that then translates into what does an organization do about that? We're going to hear from a couple of really, really tremendous technology providers here in a few minutes that are really helping a variety of organizations try to figure this out. How do you manage within the constraints, I guess, of these 3 topics and use technology, but also think about the relevance of a location? And that's where I really wanted to focus on kind of 3 pieces of work that'll leave you with some good resources if you want to go learn more about water circularity and really dive into it. The first being is a piece of work, and we're really going to start at the facility level here, and then I'll kind of move outward pretty quickly. Is a piece of work we did through BEER in partnership with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And it's a publication, but it's also, there's a tool available, and it's all publicly available. You see the website there at the bottom. But the whole idea was, how could we help an individual facility move from a linear thinking of they take water, they use it to produce their good or service, and then they discharge it? That very linear thinking. How can we break that up? How can we help a facility think about how could their sourcing be more circular? How could their use and their reuse inside their walls of their operations be more circular? And then how could the discharge also? Ultimately, all 3 of those things come together. And, it kind of leads to this second piece of work, which is saying, in order to make these kind of, advanced decisions around water circularity, you need to think about the context around your operations. What's going on in the community, the watershed or basin or catchment, whatever term you want to use. And that kind of leads into this second piece of work, which we call the context-based decision guide for water reuse and recycling. Again, it was trying to help a company or facility make these decisions around, can we do more with our water? How do we optimize every drop we touch? And I thought it was really interesting because we focused in on this concept of most organizations think about their impacts on a watershed. Are they using too much water? Is their discharge impacting the watershed, et cetera? But any organization also has a variety of dependencies. And that's where it gets really interesting, because you're dependent upon, say, a utility to provide you a good, clean, reliable source of water, the right volume, the right pressure, the right quality, etc. And that's a dependency. You can't control that utility. You can try to influence it, but your operations are really dependent upon that potentially, especially if it's the only source of water that you have. So this guide, which you again can download, you see the website there. It helps frame that, and it helps you think about what is going on in the local community. What are the impacts and dependencies? How do I think about what is the right technology for this situation? Because, as everybody's heard, water is really, really local. So you have to kind of localize your decision making as well. And that's what we really wanted to provide in this guidance. And to think about what else could you do? Could you recycle your wastewater to reuse it on your own property and on your own site? Could you share it with a neighboring industry? Can you discharge it to agriculture or to the environment? What are those options, and what do you have to think about to make a really sound business decision? So that's the second piece of work. And then that really then branches out, because no organization can do this alone. You're not going to be able to create water security in a watershed by yourself. It really takes a whole system. And that's what really has attracted me to this whole concept around water circularity. And it really started a couple years ago, where we put out this piece of guidance, which again, you see there on the right. It was through the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the C100 initiative. We partnered as Antea Group with Arup. And it was this idea of, again, everything's very linear. We pull from water. There's a distribution system that stores that water, treats that water, distributes it to the different users, whether it's domestic, industrial, agriculture, etc. And then it's used, and then it's discharged back or returned to a wastewater treatment facility. It's kind of very linear in a lot of locations. And what we were really trying to challenge is, on the human side of that, we need to be more circular. We all need to think about how, again, to optimize our drops and to, the 4 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle, and then return is critical as well. But one thing you forget about is kind of the nature side of it all, right? The environment needs a certain amount of water. And what we've got to figure out is, how do we create that symbiosis between the two? And that's what this work was really trying to get on the table. So again, encourage you to look at all 3 of those. They're publicly available. They're good, background on water circularity. And this is a constantly evolving space. But it also sets the stage for these technologies we're going to talk about, because you can only really achieve this with really good technologies to recycle water. And to treat and to reuse water. And that's what today is kind of all about. So appreciate you being here. I'm excited to listen to these technology providers. I'm fascinated by what they've created and come up with. And then we'll have some time here at the end to have some dialogue as well. So with that, I think I'll pass it back to Michael.
Thanks, Nick.